Now let's bring you today's perspective. And here on France 24, we hear so much about efforts to help younger people, to help women, to enable justice and to fight, for example, mental health problems. Who, though, are those people who are trying to do something about it? Well, my guest today certainly fits into that category. Vandita Morarka is founder and chief executive officer at One Future Collective. She's worked as a development policy consultant, a legal researcher, a gender rights facilitator, working with philanthropists, government bodies, politicians, and even celebrities. And she joins us now from Mumbai. Great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us on the programme. I know you started off working, didn't you, with some of those communities in Mumbai. This was right back when you were a teenager, wasn't it? Tell us what exactly you were doing and what that was like.
Right. I started doing this work when I was 17 or 18. And it was very naive and maybe not guided in the best way, but guided with the best intents. We started a program called Students for Social Reform Initiative when I was 18, me and a bunch of my friends. And we had 120 volunteers that did after-school programs, crisis management work, just providing skill delivery across the city of Mumbai. And this is where I had some of the most profound experiences that really transformed how I view this work. It really helped me shift my work from social service to social justice. The nature of the programs was quite wide-ranging there.
And what inspired you to take it up in the first place?
I don't have an answer. Since I was 6, I knew I wanted to be a human rights lawyer. I think I saw a lot of injustice very close in the city I live in the communities I was a part of. And it really rankled me that nothing was happening about it. And then I feel like a lot of people ask me, if nothing is happening, why wouldn't you do something about it? I feel that's what pushed me towards doing this work. I also went to a really feminist college in the 11th standard when I was 16 years old. I think that really shaped a lot of my activism and work as well.
Looking at the list of things you've done, I mean, it does seem to me that perhaps the main thing that you're trying to tackle is women's rights and helping women as well. Where do you think India stands on women's rights? I mean, from an outside perspective, perhaps people see that things are a lot better than they used to be, but there's still a long way to go. Would that be fair?
Oh, definitely. We're way better than we used to be. There are very strong laws on paper. I feel like we really lack when it comes to implementation. And a lot of that is because of individuals and interpersonal behaviors that need to change. And there's only so far policy can go to address that.
So it's about changing hearts as well, perhaps?
Changing hearts, and also I feel like a lot of people need to give up power. There are vast segments of what I would term oppressor communities that need to give up privilege and power for there to be equity. And that's always a tough choice, right?
And listening to the way you're talking there, I mean, obviously a country very near to where you are there in India, Afghanistan, what's happened there over the last few days. I mean, knowing what you're involved in, how difficult is it to see something like that happening?
It's horrifying, to be honest. I have friends in Afghanistan. I have colleagues I have worked with. And we've tried our best to do what we can, but we've lost touch with some of them as well. And it's been terrifying to see this play out again. I think it's very easy for a lot of the world to just turn their backs on Afghanistan, and I find it irresponsible, especially because I think a lot of the Western world is responsible for creating what is happening in Afghanistan right now.
And have you been able to talk to some of them since the Taliban came back into power and find out already how the situation has changed for them?
Oh, for sure. So we were able to remain in contact at least for the first few days. And a lot of the updates we got were how some of the activists were destroying their documentation. They're having to go undercover. The Taliban was already knocking door to door and getting a sense of who's doing what and what is happening on ground. At least that's what some of our colleagues reported back. Some of them are also like reporters and fairly publicly known activists who were then very scared for what is going to happen to them now under this new regime. Because what is stated publicly and what is stated internationally as a political move, perhaps by an organization, may not be the ground reality in Afghanistan, which scares me. And that is what we've also received from people there.
And do you think you'll be able to continue being in touch with those people? And is there any way that you can help and organisations like you can continue to help? Or do you think it's basically going to be a cut-off now?
That's an interesting question. So, for some people who worked in not very well connected areas or came from further oppressed communities in Afghanistan, we've already lost contact. And that's been really sad. Two, three people we've been trying to support, and we've completely lost contact with them. However, without naming them, I do know that there are nonprofits that have done this work 20 years in the past and are doing it again now, to ensure that girls continue to get an education, to ensure that there is safety and shelter for young women, for queer folks. We are trying to support them in different ways. Some of the ways we're doing it is by supporting fundraising efforts for local community organizations in Afghanistan. And the second is supporting the power of Afghani refugees across the world to be able to state their identity and their demands of what they think is needed to make Afghanistan safer.
Let's come back to your work as well in India, talk a little bit more about that. I mean, it's not just about women's rights, is it? It's about youth rights, it's about legal rights, social rights as well.
Yeah, so I don't think women's rights can be separated from the rest of the rights issues, right? Women's rights are human rights. And the work we do is very intersectional, which recognizes that women's rights are intersecting and often overlapping with caste issues, issues of religion, issues of geography, so many other concerns. So our work very focusedly works on intersectionalities. So we look at women, we look at queer folks, we look at young people, but we also look at their intersections with other identities. And we devise programs and options for them that are rooted in their context.
It sounds like you've got so many different things that you're involved in. I mean, how do you decide? The workload must be incredible. I mean, how do you decide where you're going to focus your energies at any one point?
That's such a great question, one that we don't often have an answer to. I think that what has really helped us is we know our why, we know why we exist, and that is social justice in our world, and to lead it with communities of care. However, the how is allowed to be shifting. We do it in multiple ways, but we keep our strategic goals in mind and we filter through that. The second thing we also do is we don't think scale means that we need to be present everywhere. So we follow a scale by replication model, and we support the efforts of lots of nonprofits to do similar and allied work. The idea being that if there are more organizations and more people doing this work, we won't be needed as much.
And finally, are you able to keep optimistic?
Sorry?
Are you able to keep optimistic?
Sometimes. Sometimes on some days. But I hold on to hope quite a bit. I think it's idealistic and perhaps naive, but there is so much that each of us do every day. And there is something very strong and hopeful about that. There's something that drives us to get up every day and to do something to change the world. If I may, there's a quote that started me on this work and keeps me here is, what's the point of a revolution if you can't dance? And yeah, that keeps me going every day.
Hopefully you've inspired some others as well. Great to talk to you today. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. Vandita Morarka joining us there from Mumbai. Thanks very much.